The Bible says there were giants in the earth in those days. I believe it says that because there were giants in the earth in those days. By the way, the Christians that read their Bible have always known the earth is round. Okay, it was only a few heathen a few hundred years ago that said the earth was flat. Back in 1922, a guy named Harold Cook found one tooth in Sioux County, Nebraska, right by the Colorado border. He thought that to him this tooth looked like it was halfway between the shape of a human tooth and an ape's tooth. All he found was one tooth. So he constructed an entire man from one tooth. Then he built the guy a wife. You have to really be good to know what his wife looks like from the shape of his tooth, but these are professionals, so don't question them. They had them on display in the books, you know, Piltdown Nebraska man and his wife. Later, they found out the tooth actually came from a pig. Let's talk about Piltdown man. There's a place in England called Piltdown, England. This whole thing was a fraud, okay? A Catholic priest named Pierre de Chardin and a couple of other guys, nobody's exactly sure who all was involved in this, but they took a human skull and an ape's jawbone. They filed them down and made them fit together. Treated them with acid to make them look old, and took them out and buried them in a gravel pit. And then later they discovered the Piltdown man. It was in the textbooks for 40 years. It was a hoax. 500 papers, master's degrees and doctor's degree papers were written on the Piltdown man. What about Neanderthal man? Well, Neanderthal man is named after the Neander Valley where it was found back in 1856. And in that valley back in 1856, they found a skeleton of a man. And they said, wow, this guy's back is bent over. It must be some poor soul that drowned in the flood. 4 years later, Charles Darwin's book was written, 1859, or 3 years later. And people began looking for evidence for evolution. And so everybody originally thought the Neanderthal man was just a human, okay, drowned in the flood, probably. But after a while, they couldn't find any evidence for evolution, so they started resurrecting stuff they'd previously found and said, well, we better call this evidence for evolution. Because man walks on 2 legs and apes walk on 4. This guy's back was bent over. And they said, wow, look at that. He's evolving. He's slowly coming up. No, they proved about 50 years ago it was just an old man with arthritis. He's slowly going down. and quite a few Neanderthals have been found all over Europe. The bones in their forehead were a little thicker than ours, but their brain size was actually bigger than ours. And their bone structure indicates they were so strong, the average Neanderthal could probably pick up the average NFL linebacker and throw him over the goalpost. There is no indication they were dumb or primitive. They were incredibly intelligent, incredibly strong race of people here on this planet. Just humans, probably humans that were living to be 300 or 400 years old. Because as you get older, the bones in the forehead get thicker. Your ears get longer. Nose gets bigger. How many have seen older folks like that? You know, that stuff kind of happens to them. Called acromegaly. Jack Cuozzo is a dentist from New Jersey. He went over to Europe and studied most of the original actual Neanderthals that are in the museums. He brought with X-ray equipment, X-rayed them. He found out they put them together horribly incorrectly. They wanted them to look ape-like, so they took one and took the jaw and moved it out of the socket almost an inch. So it looked like it had a sloping head. He said, this did not even set in the socket, fellas. Put it back in the socket, it looks just like a normal human. So they reconstruct these fragments of bones based on their preconceived idea. Cuozzo said, after examining the famous Rhodesia man, he said, you must understand this skull really cries out disease. The teeth are badly decayed. The bones of the vault of the skull are extremely thick. There are many features that testify of acromegaly, excessive growth hormone, in old age. We've got another one in our textbooks here in Escambia County, Florida, called Australopithecus afarensis, more commonly known as Lucy. Donald Johansen found Lucy in 1974, Hadar Valley, Ethiopia. He found these little bones and put it together. He found 40% of the skeleton. Lucy was about 3 feet tall. It was obviously a chimpanzee, a monkey of some kind. But they put Lucy's skull in the textbooks today as if it is half human, half ape. The head was too thoroughly crushed, they couldn't tell what they had for a head. Very few bones. All you need is a good imagination to make a missing link. But the big thing that triggered his imagination was Lucy's knee joint. He said the thigh bone angled off to the side. See, on a human, your lower leg comes up straight, and then the thigh bone angles off to the side because your hips are wider than your knees. On an ape, their upper and lower leg are in a straight line. And he said Lucy's knee is angled off to the side. That proves she's becoming a human. Well, in the first place, National Geographic labeled this one, which is actually the Hadar knee. It was found a year earlier, 70 meters, that's 200 feet lower in a different layer of rock, okay, and 1.5 miles away. This is not from Lucy, unless the train hit her going about 400 miles an hour. Okay? 5 times National Geographic labeled it Lucy's knee, and it's not even Lucy's knee. Tom Willis has a great article about Lucy Goes to College, about the real facts about Lucy's knee, and how Johansen has very conveniently just been real quiet about this. Okay? That's not Lucy's knee. But he said the angled femur proves she's becoming a human. Well, now hold on, Donald. Every monkey that climbs trees has an angled femur. It's ground-dwelling monkeys that have the straight femur. Angled femur might just mean a tree-climbing monkey. So that's not proof it's becoming a human. He said, well, you know, the bones are slightly bigger than a regular ape. Well, yeah, they were just a little bit bigger than a regular ape, but that doesn't prove anything.